Who in heaven's name is that?
Stop breathing so hard.
Oh, I didn't know it showed.
If you love listening to this show, please consider giving a rating and a review on Amazon Alexa or wherever you listen. We want to continue bringing you this amazing content, and part of our ability to do that means that we need a big audience. Now, it may not seem like much, but rating and reviewing the show will help more people find us, just like how you found this show. Simply on any podcast platform, search for a show, scroll down to the bottom, and push 5 stars. It's that easy. Thanks for supporting the show. So today I'm joined by Harel Tayeb, who is the CEO of Kryon, that provides enterprise robotic process solutions. And before Kryon, he was an advisor and investor at Plus Ventures. And before that, he held a number of leadership positions at startups, many of which were acquired. I want to welcome you to the show today.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Okay. So there is this kind of common myth that many entrepreneurs are in their 20s, they're single, they have no mortgage, they don't have a single care or worry in the world, right? And they could focus wholeheartedly into their startups. Now, is that really the truth? And certainly for you, I wonder if that has been your experience, or my understanding is that you have a growing family, and what the reality is in terms of a startup journey as somebody who has a family and the responsibilities of growing a startup.
Excellent question. And I think, I used to be young, not too many years ago. But yes, I have a family of 4 kids and a dog, which we love. And I think that in a way we see these days a change within the startup economy. We see much more mature CEOs coming into this area. You can see Elon Musk, which is not is not a young entrepreneur, but he managed to do some cool stuff with a growing family. And when I'm thinking about my past experience, starting from a company named Gteko that was acquired by Microsoft, then my own startup became part of ConduIT, an Israeli company, and I've been the CEO of AVG Israel, part of the AVG Global, which was acquired by Avast. When we've been acquired by Avast, I thought to establish venture capital. I said, I've done a few acquisitions already. What is the only thing that I never did before? I made some investment, but I never been a pure investor. So I established fund, venture capital. I called it Amsterdam, New York, Tel Aviv. And, within 2 months, I found out that, that's not my position. I'm not doing that quite well as I do the, execution part. And I didn't enjoy that. What is make me much more passionate about is the ability to execute, the ability to identify challenges, to work with people, and being able to find solution that eventually can make a change in the market instead of watching other people doing so. So I would say, and I've my wife, she's a CFO of a public company. So both of us, we are working, very hard on our day-to-day job, and yet we manage to, keep our family, happy, healthy, of course, these days. And I think that, we are much more focused. The experience, the ability, raising a family is like raising a company.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point, and I think something that many novice entrepreneurs don't really understand is that when you are embarking on a startup journey, you're really taking your family with you through the ups and downs, and it's important to understand the level of commitment not just from yourself as a founder or co-founder, but also the family that you're putting them into. And I think, the key word that you mentioned is focus, the sharpness. And if you start to really treat all aspects of your life with that degree of excellence and focus, you start to optimize the scarcity of the time that you do have, but still increase the efficacy or the effectiveness of your execution. Great point about the operational side relative to, I guess, looking for great startups. And I think this kind of attributes back to the question that I was going to ask, which is, what has been really that key hidden success factor or variable that has attributed to you being associated with so many acquisitions in your career? And I think, in terms of that statistically significant value, it's that's attributing to your batting average. It's your focus and your expertise around execution. Tell us a little bit more about that execution and your obsession with execution, and how that has eventually led you to being recruited, and since then, for the last several years, been running Kryon as this CEO.
So when I joined Kryon 3 years ago, I found a very nice company, 18 people, 18 people working at Kryon, mainly focused on technology product, but they had no sense of strategy, go-to-market, business development, and I think that in a way what attracted me most in the RPA market, within Kryon and in general in this crazy market, is that although it was so clear, at least to me, that RPA automation is the next big thing within the enterprise market, is that none of the existing RPA vendors or the general even automation solution in the market has clear view of what need to be done, or how should the enterprise market should treat the RPA solution. And since I joined the company, we are close to, I think, 150 employees these days, 10 offices worldwide, customers almost from any vertical. We have customers like TCF Bank, HSBC, AIG, Allianz, Wyndham Hotel, Verizon, AT&T, and many more. And I think that, when I found out that, the main focus in the RPA was pure automation, I figured out that something is missing. That, speaking of just automation is not good enough, because, I'm sure that you are familiar with that. The TCO, the total cost of ownership, the cost to, have a successful automation project within your organization, the ability to scale up your automation was a challenge, back then, and it is still a challenge within the enterprise market. We see that. We speak with, almost any customer in this market, and there is a huge challenge. Although the great, growth of companies in this area, and yet the ability to scale up within the enterprise market, it's tough. It's very tough. And what I've done since I joined the company, we've been focused on the full picture. So I said to the team, I think my first travel was to Singapore. I've met with Singtel, and I saw the way that they are building their automation. And I saw many people working on, identification of the process, implementing these processes. And I came back to Tel Aviv and I said, guys, we have 5 patents for computer vision and AI technology. And I said, guys, something is broken here. We need to fix it. And, we came up with something that we called that back then process discovery, which is the ability to identify processes on the go. So nothing needs to be done. You just need to have a client installed within the organization. And we will figure out for you as an enterprise, which processes is the best, you should automate first. And we'll take that into the automation. So it will be, we reduce the overall investment, the TCO, by up to 80%. by using this technology. So the idea was to, instead of just, identifying growing market, trying to figure out how can I become a leader in this market, is to identify that there is something bigger than RPA. There is something bigger than RPA, and we can, although we are small in this market, we are not the largest company in the market, and yet we can find a way to innovate and stand up, not because of market share, but because of innovation, because of the ability to do something different that eventually will change the entire market share. And this is exactly what we've done over the last few years within Kryon.
I am absolutely pleased to hear what you're sharing, because at some point the core RPA functionality is going to be commoditized to a great extent. And here, what you've done is you've gotten much closer to your consumers' needs. Your clients, just to ramp up to gear up for these projects, they need to spend hours, if not weeks and months, trying to document the kinds of processes that they need to have automations around. And what you're bringing is something completely out of the box, a client that just sits and watches and observes, looks for patterns, and probably is looking for things like manual processes, repetitive, keystrokes, those sort of things, that shows that there's something that is clearly manual, clearly redundant, and there's a lot of embedded inefficiencies, and you're basically bubbling up in a very empirical fashion that, hey, here are the pockets of inefficiencies we can actually root out through this platform that we have. So I think it makes a tremendous amount of sense.
Mm-hmm. And I think that almost any company in this market, or actually in any market, speak about AI. How can we implement AI within our organization? What can be done, or what are we doing with AI? And I think that, from my point of view, when I think about, we spoke about PD, or process discovery, or full cycle automation. I think that, the main idea behind AI is not just to use that, because everyone asks for AI, is to be able and provide pure value for our customers. So when I speak with customers, I don't speak with them about our AI patents that we have. I speak with them about productivity. I speak with them about the ability to take their company to the next level of productivity. I speak, usually I said that to many, C-levels within these enterprises. I said, guys, instead of thinking about, let's let's scale up within our organization department by department. Let's stop for a second and let's think strategically, what should be our approach going forward? How can we change the organization? The workspace environment need to be changed in a different way than just, we have a very successful department implementing RPA. Let's copy that, or let's replicate that within 5 other departments. You need to think, from different, angle, and then figure out what is your company strategy. How can you scale up your organization? You said it very clear, the challenge of, being able, the total cost of ownership, the cost, the service cost, and the activities that companies need to take in order to automate their environment. And I think not just about that. I think about, there are, within any enterprise, within any organization, you have 30% of processes that, these are the low-hanging fruit processes that almost any RPA vendor will be able to automate. And this is the commodity, aspect of RPA. But, on these processes, we can deliver faster because of these full cycle automation capabilities. But I think about the 70% of processes that no one can handle or even identify, because, the ROI will be negative. It will not be the positive ROI that you would expect from an RPA project. And by finding, providing a technology solution that can help your organization seamlessly to identify, to map these processes, and then, provide you with the ability to choose what should we implement now, what should we implement later. And that's the main, I think, not the main difference, because there are many differences. And, you know, the other RPA vendors are fantastic. You know, they are doing good job. But, you know, looking on the overall picture, you know, the ability to, you know, identify what needs to be done next, not for the next, you know, 6 months, but, you know, within 5 years from now, you know, how your organization would look like. You know, how would you like to lead your organization? That's the main question that, you know, companies need to ask themselves before implementing any RPA solution within the organization.
Yeah, I really appreciate the fact that you brought this up, because I think though RPA has been just growing year over year and has been really well adopted in terms of a solution, is that it also has, in a way, pigeonholed corporate thinking to think that RPA equals tactical short-term wins, low-hanging fruits, you know, things that a low-level entry person is doing, now you can automate it. But I think, you know, a good point that you're making is that, you know, in the past, a lot of these, especially the CIOs and the organization within their CIO, is that, and the CTOs, is they've been kind of burned by the large ERP, you know, installation, the upgrades, the migration path, and it's been very costly. And with that, you know, the longevity and the value from those large ERP and eventual transition to cloud has been somewhat challenging. So they've been kind of burned. So as a result, they're really looking for short-term tactical wins. But, you know, I think the real value that I'm hearing is, you know, businesses shouldn't shy away from strategic business objectives. They should not shy away from transformation that's going to really lift their top-line growth. And RPA should not be positioned or pigeonholed as something that's superficial, quick, easy, you know, replaces really low entry type of skill labor, but can be positioned strategically from a roadmap in terms of the things that can be focused on intermediate and more longer term that could be transformational and really lift that organization to new heights. So I really appreciate that point that you bring up. A couple of questions that I have is, I know that you are intentional about framing or phrasing your posture to focus on benefits rather than the tools, but you do have a collection of patents around computer vision and other ML aspects, which is interesting because, you know, from an industry vernacular, sounds like you guys are much further ahead in terms of your roadmap from RPA to IPA, you know, which is intelligent process automation that builds on top of RPA use cases that, you know, uses capability of ML, NLP, natural language processing, as well as other AI technologies to not just automate certain processing tasks, but to learn from it and to improve upon that. So can you share a little bit about your current roadmap that you can share from a public domain perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, you know, you mentioned that quite well, the change within the RPA market. And, you know, I think that, you know, the existing RPA as it is today will not survive. You know, it doesn't make any sense to have, you know, just to mimic human activities and then have, you know, I will be more than happy to share with you, you know, I had a discussion with a CFO of a large insurance company in the States. And, you know, during this discussion, said, you know, we have many people wasting their time doing these, you know, crazy processes, and we need robots to do these processes instead of these people. And I said, you know, your employees are doing these things because of procedures and other things that you defined in the past. Why not changing? You know, why mimic, you know, why having a robot that will mimic this, you know, crazy, super, you know, sometimes sophisticated, but definitely not necessary processes within the organization, if we can take this data and figure out which processes or how can we make this process much better for you. And the way to do that is not by thinking about just, okay, we have some kind of indication that these are the processes and we just need to mimic them in order to reduce cost, in order to bridge the gap that we have today. You need to think completely different. You know, you need to think that if today you're using one of the ERP systems and you are paying, you know, millions of dollars, but you are using only small portion of this specific ERP system, And there are many innovative ERPs that are doing the same or can provide the same value for your business and will cost you much cheaper than that. With the RPA capabilities, the transformation will be, I don't want to say seamlessly, it will hurt, it might be difficult, and yet it will be much simpler for you to just transform from, an expensive, unused ERP environment to a very pinpoint solution that you need to, that is much better for you. And then, the RPA will not be, you said IPA, and I like this terminology because, even IPA is only the first step toward the future of workspace environment. We spoke about productivity. The future that the way that I envision, the workspace environment is that, each one of us will have a personal assistant on our machine. And this is, what we call an attended automation that will communicate with many virtual machines behind the scene, the unattended automation, and, the identification, the discovery capabilities will help you on your day-to-day job. First, to offload processes from your day-to-day job, but the second step would be to improve your performance as an employee. And the way that you will be able to use this productivity tool, more than just RPA, IPA, BPM, it can change the entire market, the entire enterprise market toward the future that we experience, these days. We experience this crazy pandemic and, the changes that used to take years happening, I don't want to say on a daily basis, but on a weekly and monthly basis. We see change within these organizations. They are thinking differently. They are executing projects that used to take years. They are doing that immediately. And I think that this is a huge opportunity for the entire market to think differently about, the way that they should handle their workspace environment, because it's more than automation. It's more than even identification and automation. It's a complete picture about productivity. And it's a complete picture about the tools that you are using. Are you using the right tool just because, this is the buzzword or this is the trend in the market? Or do you think about, what needs to be done in your organization 5 years from now?
So the last question I'm going to ask you is, can you share very briefly a product or project failure and the lessons learned that you can share with others?
Absolutely. So, I will, I think that when we launched Process Discovery, we launched that 2 years ago. And, we launched a product that was not mature enough. And, the buzz that we created in the market changed the entire RPA market. Because, the first time that I introduced this product to the market, I've got, many consultants and, service providers that said, it will never work. And, we don't need that because you are taking our job. And I said, guys, this is the future. This is what this is what we need to do now. And we launched a product that was not mature enough. And I think that, it was a mistake. I could wait another few months. So it was a mistake for that moment. But when I look, when I think today, should I could wait another year and then release a product that will be a bulletproof and just then learn from the market. But today, 2 years past the release of Process Discovery, when I have enough experience from the field, from customers that use this product, from, we just released, Forster, one of the analysts in our market, just published, a report based on research that they've done with 2 customers of us, Wyndham Hotel, the largest hotel chain in the States, and LTCG. And, they found out that the ROI of full cycle automation was more than, 350% just because they use this full cycle automation. So I made a mistake. When I launched this product, it was not mature enough. And yet, we managed to learn from these mistakes and being able to improve ourselves and get much more mature product, not just because we think that we know what is the best for the market, but based on the the experience that we had with our existing customer.
I mean, really, that's market fit, right? So it's about iteration to getting that perfect market fit. And when you have market fit, it's amazing because the market will then signal back to you saying, this is exactly what we want. Let's proceed. So with that, I've been joined by Harel Tayeb, who is the CEO of Kryon. Thanks for joining today.
Thank you.
If you've enjoyed this episode, take a moment to rate our show on any podcast platform that you listen to. Scroll down to the bottom and push 5 stars. It's that easy. And as always, thanks for listening.